Hello guys, welcome to our channel. Today we are discussing about anatomy of the heart. Heart is our one of the delicate organ in the body. Let's take a look at the heart. Anatomy means by the outside the heart is look like approximately the size of our fist of our hand. Weight is nearly 250 to 300 grams. Location: heart is located in the mediastinum between the lungs. Mediastinum is is the bone which is present on the middle of the chest where the ribs attach to it, and behind that there is a heart. Superior surface of diaphragm 2 by thirds of its lie to the left of the mediastinal line, which means that heart is tilted towards the left, anterior to the vertebral column and posterior to the sternum. Covering of the heart. Heart is covered by various layers. Heart is double wall sac around the heart, which is called pericardium. It is composed of superficial fibrous pericardium and two deep layer. Serous pericardium is converted into parietal layer and visceral layer. Visceral layer is a direct contact with the heart and parietal layer is above that. Parietal layer lines the internal surface of the fibrous pericardium, and visceral layer or epicardium lie the surface of the heart, which is directly contact with the heart. They are separated by the fluid-filled pericardial cavity called as a pericardial cavity that protect and anchor the heart. All these layers are made to protect the heart, prevents overfilling of the heart with the bloods, which may cause loss of heart functioning, and allow for the heart to work in a relative friction free environment. This pericardial cavity is responsible for friction free environment in the heart. Layer of heart walls: there is epicardium, myocardium and endocardium. Endocardium is the innermost layer and epicardium is the outer layer, which is also called as visceral layer. Visceral layer, it is a part of serous pericardium. Inner part of serous pericardium is visceral layer, that is outer part means epicardium. Myocardium, this is cardiac muscles which are responsible for the contraction and relaxations of the heart. And endocardium is the inner layer to the heart, endothelial layer of inner myocardial surface. These are the cardiac muscles. Heart anatomy. External markings: apex pointed inferior region which is tilted towards the left, and base is upper region. Coronary sulcus indentation that separate arteria from ventricles. Anterior and posterior intraventricular sulcus separate right and left ventricles. There is interarterial and interventricular spaces. Internal divisions: arteria superior, ventricle is inferior. Interventricular and interarterial septa are present. Arteria of the heart. Our heart is divided into four chambers. Upper two is called as arteria and lower two is called as ventricles. In the right arteria, blood is collected from the inferior and superior vena cava from the body. This is deoxygenated blood. It is after that blood is go to the right ventricle, and that after that blood goes to lungs for purification. Oxygenated blood from lungs came to left atria, then left ventricle, and then from left ventricle it is pumped to the body. Okay, we are discussing about artery of the heart. Arteria receiving chamber of the heart. This is called as receiving chambers. Right atrium receive deoxygenated blood from superior inferior vena cava of upper and lower part of the body. That blood is deoxygenated. And left atria receive oxygenated blood from the lungs, which is purified by the lungs, separated by the interarterial septum walls. Foramen ovale opening in the interarterial septum in a fetus. Fossa ovalis, this is a remnant of foramen ovale. Each atria has a protruding auricles and pectinate muscles mark arterial walls, pump blood into ventricles, and blood enter right atria from superior and inferior vena cava and coronary sinus. Blood enter left atria from pulmonary veins, which are from lungs, which bring oxygenated blood to the heart in the left atrium. This is a right atrium, this is a right ventricle, this is a left atrium and left ventricle. This is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. This is left pulmonary arteries. Let's take a look at ventricles of the heart. Ventricles are discharge chamber of the heart which receive blood from the right atrium and left atrium respectively. Papillary muscles, trabeculi, carnea muscles are mark ventricular walls which prevent backward flow of the blood into atrium when there is a ventricular contractions. Separated by the intraventricular septums contain components of conduction systems. There is a conduction system in the heart which involve AV node, SA node, AV node, Purkinje fibers, etc. Right ventricle pump blood into the pulmonary trunk which go to the lungs for the oxygenations, and left ventricle pump blood into the aorta which is oxygenated blood goes towards the body for various processes. Left ventricle pump blood into aorta. Thicker myocardium due to the greater workload on left ventricle. There is a load, much load with respect to others right ventricle, because left ventricle pump blood to the whole body which require greater force or pressure to pump the blood. That's why the wall of left ventricles are thicker than right ventricle. Left ventricles pulmonary circulation supplied by right ventricle is much low pressure system requiring less energy output by ventricle, which leads to the blood deoxygenated blood goes towards the lungs for oxygenation, and systemic circulation supplied by the left ventricle is higher pressure system and thus require more forceful contraction which passes blood to the whole body by aorta. Structure of heart walls. Left ventricle 3 times thicker than right ventricle because there is pumping, hard pumping is required for left ventricle to pump the blood towards the whole body, exert more pumping force. That's why the blood is pumped to the whole body. That blood through aorta, then arteries, capillaries goes to various parts of the body. Flatten right ventricle into crescent shape. Look at this shape of right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle. Their wall is much thicker than the right ventricle. Take a look at walls, arterioventricular walls. Heart walls ensure unidirectional blood flow through the heart. When there is a failure of muscles to prevent the backward flow of blood, there is a dysfunctioning in the heart, which may lead to various problems. Compose These heart walls are composed of endocardium and connective tissue cores. two major types: atrioventricular wall and semilunar walls. Atrioventricle, in their name there is indication of it is present between atrium and ventricles. And semilunar walls are present on the aorta and pulmonary arteries. Atrioventricular, let's look towards atrioventricular walls that lie between the arteria and ventricles. There is a two atrioventricular walls, right atrioventricular walls and left atrioventricular walls. Right atrioventricular wall is also called as a tricuspid walls, which is made of three cusps, and left atrioventricular wall is made up of bicuspid or mitral wall. It is very important to note that left atrioventricular wall is also called as a mitral wall. Atrioventricular walls prevent backward flow of the blood into the artery when ventricular contraction occur. Because of forceful ventricular contraction, there is a chances that blood flow back to the artery. Cordia tendini is the muscle which anchor atrioventricular wall to papillary muscles of ventricular wall, prevent prolapse of wall back into atrium. Cordia tendini is important term. Semilunar wall. Semilunar walls are prevent backward flow of blood into the ventricles when there is a ventricular contraction. Has no chamber in a tendine attachments. Aortic semilunar walls lie between the left ventricle and aorta, and pulmonary semilunar walls lie between the right ventricle and pulmonary trunk. Heart sound is lub and dub due to the wall closing. Lub is because of atrioventricular walls and dub is because of semilunar walls. Lub is produced when the arterial contraction take place, and the closing of atrioventricular wall may lead to the sound lub. And dub, when the semilunar wall close, there is a production of dub sound. So it is for today, and that this lub and dub produced by the heart, which also indicate the functioning of the heart. When there is a dysfunctioning of heart, the sound is changed, and that sound is heard by doctor, and which may suggest you that you are suffering from cardiovascular problems. That's why the sound of the heart is very important. Heart beats 72 times, average 72 times in a minute. Okay, so in next video, part 2 of this session will be conducted. Thank you. Please like and subscribe.